son espléndidas. Hoy, antes, después, son aquellas personas que nos hipnotizan, nos encandilan en un escenario. Y en este caso, el que vamos a elegir como un señor que dibujó un pastel y se acaba de vender la semana pasada en casi 12 millones de dólares. Ese que vamos a presentar. Ese que usted puede ir a ver también al Museo de Bellas Artes. Si usted no lo vio, no lo recorrió, no lo pudo visualizar, disfrutar, vaya al Museo de Bellas Artes. 2 óleos, 2 pasteles de Degas en original, auténticos. Museo de Bellas Artes, barrio de Recoleta. Y ahora nos vamos a ir a esta explicación, que nuestro pintor amaba el ballet, amaba las bailarinas y amaba dibujar. Nos vamos con Degas a una muy buena presentación y un relato.
The work I'm talking about today is a fabulous pastel by Edgar Degas entitled Danseuse from the mid-1880s. It is unquestionably one of the finest pastels by this artist to come to market, and in my opinion, probably the finest since 2008 when we sold the world record price. It's so finely rendered. It actually comes from a series, as do most of Degas' works on paper, certainly from this period. But he did multiple iterations in this scale of a dancer in essentially the same pose. But when you look at the detail, the level of resolution, the clarity of the form, and the amount of detail just even in the sitter's face, this kind of stands apart. The subject of this particular pastel is very likely Marie van Gotham, who's also the subject of Degas' most famous sculpture, the Petite Danseuse de 14 ans. And this work represents the intersection of his early and later career, where you're starting to see this riotous color appear, but in this case, it's showing up in the backdrop. And you can see him working through a lot of the complexities of the composition, being very experimental. In fact, the backgrounds change, so he illustrates various sets. In other words, it's clearly not meant to be set in a specific time and place, but rather something that he did from recollection or from a live model that he then puts into the setting of course, the Paris Opera House. One of the ways I think you can relate to Degas and his fixation, his fascination with dancers and the ballerinas of the Palais Garnier is that they're kind of almost like the athletes of their time. Today, we're so familiar with the idea of a poster of Michael Jordan dunking, but the only reason we have that image is because there was a photographer who was sitting, crouching on the sidelines and able to get that exact angle. You look at the Paris Opera House, the Palais Garnier, which had been opened in 1875, so it was a relatively new phenomenon, and it became the epicenter of cultural life in Paris. The extent to which I think he was fascinated by it is both a reflection of his personal interest in ballet, in theater, in fabric and costume, and all of the production. But at the same time, it was also the perfect thing for Degas to fixate on as an impressionist, as somebody whose job was to engage in the painting of modern life. Within that world, the layers of complexity, of psychology, of characters, and all the things that one could gravitate towards, one could take as their subject, one could investigate, both from a formal perspective, right, looking at color, looking at lighting, but also from the perspective of an ethnographer, right, what is the life of these dancers? There's no better provenance than a museum collection. Nothing's more exciting and nothing is more prestigious. And in this case, you had this work residing in the MFA Boston for almost 7 decades, really as a treasure, rightfully so. We are so thrilled to have this work in our Impressionist and Modern Art evening sale this May. It's one of the absolute highlights, and we're really looking forward to seeing the way that it's received by the market and the price that it's positioned to make.